What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. Today, I have Miss Daniela Acosta Levin with me. She is the owner of Levin Insurance Group, based out of Boca Raton, Florida. Levin Insurance Group works out of Florida, Montana, and Nevada. They focus on real estate investors, builders, interior designers, as well as some auto and home business. And Daniela, it is a pleasure to have you here. Welcome
Hey,
to the
Brad.
show.
Thank you, Brad. How are you?
Good, good. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Why don't you do like we always do? Give us a little background of Daniela and how you found your way into the insurance world.
sounds good. I'm originally from Peru, so I moved and well, my parents moved us in 2001 when I was like 16, 17 years old.
Mhm.
So that was a transition, quite a
Yeah,
transition. So I found myself, in Florida. That's where we moved to, and from there I kind of just went into school and everything. I was really always interested in the creative side, so I went in for graphic design, and then I decided to have another bachelor's and went in for interior design. And so in the interim, I was like, I gotta make some money.
yeah,
I started working when I was 15 at a Subway. So it was pretty, just needed something to kind of get me going. And a friend offered me an office job back then. I was a server at a restaurant, and I just needed something that just wanted to learn more about like the office work kind of
yeah.
thing. So I ended up working as a CSR at an Allstate office in Boca, and they offered me the ability to get licensed. I got licensed, and I just thought, let me do this and see if I can actually, make something out of it in the meantime, because obviously I'm going to work in design
Right.
forever. Right? And yeah, no, that didn't happen. I
Sucked you
went from
in.
Allstate, yeah. I mean, I went from Allstate Insurance to like a State Farm office, and then I opened an agency, and then I left that. I went to like corporate job. I mean, it's been like a ride, but to
Yeah.
now 23 years into that,
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy that but see here, the thing is I still have the same passion for design.
Yeah.
So I definitely have been trying to find a way to like mesh both together. So that's where I'm at right now.
So did you start Levin Insurance Group?
So it originally, yes, I started that in 2018,
Okay.
and I came off of working for a large company. It's one of the largest carriers in the nation, actually, and it was a homeowners carrier in Florida, and was doing marketing for them for over 7 years, and it was a great, very cushy job, very good,
Yeah.
loved it. But it kind of started to become a limitation for me. Like I was still at the mercy of others telling me what I should, couldn't, how much I couldn't grow, where I should be doing things, and where I was placed versus where I thought I belonged. So I decided to take a leap of faith and I just kind of hopped off into the abyss of doing my own business.
So you did that 2018. And
Yeah.
now did you have a direction, like a business direction that you wanted to go in from the very beginning, with the investors and developers, or how did that come about?
Honestly, no, I didn't. I was just kind of getting on a bus while it was moving because I bought a book of business. The way that I learned from seeing, back when I was doing the company job, I was marketing director for that company. So I met every agent in South Florida, West Coast. I had agents all over the place. So I met a lot of people very knowledgeable in the insurance industry, which is very cool. Great networking, right? But
Yeah.
they taught me kind of, okay, if you want to get into the business, I learned a lot of things. So I figured the way to get into the business was to purchase a book of business. So that's how I got into the book. And then I went and did another acquisition after that a year later. But and so it was a couple of years of just transitioning, because
Yeah.
when you buy a book, you have to like, it's kind of like when you have a baby. Like, okay,
Yes.
you're leaving the hospital, here's your child. bye-bye. Good luck taking care of that thing. It's kind of the same thing with like the business. I literally walked in and the previous owner was like, bye-bye, good luck. They stayed on to help me pretty good for a period of time, but same thing. So I didn't really know what I was going to focus on. I kind of was more focused on getting to know what I took over,
Yeah.
learning the practices of that existing business and going from there. So just recently, I started to, now that everything's kind of stabilized after a few years, have the time to really say, okay, now what do I really want to focus on? And that's kind of how I went about.
Yeah, so let's touch on that a little bit. How did that acquisition come about? And kind of want you, if you would, just share, what that process looked like, how the business was valued, maybe some of the challenges of going through that acquisition, if there was any.
Yeah. I mean, the first one was a lot more of a learning experience for me. It was a larger acquisition. It was my
Mhm.
first acquisition. I do always believe in the power of mentorship and consulting and all that, like paying for that. I
Mhm.
think your dollar goes a long way when you do that
Yeah.
and you trust the experts. So that's what I did. I did hire, an attorney, and I did hire like what do you call it? Emerging and acquisitions like specialists.
Yeah.
So they gave me a lot of guidance. Did it cost me money? Yes, but it was worth the 100%.
Mhm.
They helped me navigate a lot of the things. I would have had no clue how to do it if I wouldn't have hired these people on my first go. And some of the challenges I think were the timeline. I needed direction, a little bit better direction on like what comes first, second, third, how does it work? A lot of unknowns when it comes to the due diligence process. I really didn't know what to ask for and
Yeah.
what would become relevant after the acquisition. Because
Right.
during the due diligence, you're like, yeah, don't worry. Oh, you don't have that? Don't worry about sending it. It's fine. And then you're like, oh, I should have asked for that.
Yeah.
you know. So it taught me a lot of lessons. Even though I had assistants, even then, you're still responsible for
Yep.
reviewing everything. So I think that was the challenge, is the lack of knowledge. But just like with everything else, I think in entrepreneurship, you learn as you go.
Yeah.
You kind of have to fall on your butt and figure it out. Luckily, none of the mistakes or oversights, should I say, that I made were very expensive. They weren't like super costly oversights, which was good. I was lucky. But I certainly learned that on my second acquisition, what to ask for, what not to forget, making sure that I had the right things lined up for that book to come in, because it is not a simple process.
No.
The first acquisition, I had two employees that came in with the acquisition.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And yeah, and that's a challenge on its own, because a lot of times there is resistance to new management. There might be resistance to new processes that you'd want to implement.
Hmm.
And though you are the boss and you can come in and claim your boss little flag or whatever, but you still have to go with understand what they're doing first, how they're doing it, and then take a step back and see, okay, should I change this? Should I change that? You can't just go and overhaul everything. I mean, you can, but I don't know if that would go so well.
No, it wouldn't. So let's, if we would, let's touch on some of those, because that is something anybody that does acquisitions, especially with employees involved, has to deal with. And that
Mhm.
is a massive challenge. And anybody that has employees knows people don't like change, and that's a big change.
Yeah.
And and especially if my own experience was that, now I worked in the agency before I took it over, but because I worked in the agency, I was well aware of what I had for the employees, and I knew when I was going to take it over there was going to be some changes.
Yeah.
And I knew there was gonna be some reluctance in how that goes. You taking over new people, you probably had to learn what their strengths and weaknesses are and how they operate. So, if you would touch on what what were the challenges that taking over the employees, and specifically, what were some of the processes that you had to implement and maybe had some friction on?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing I did is sort of what you said you did. I mean, you had a different starting position, but I did try to mimic that, right? I started and I kind of just took a back seat and just said, "All right, show me what you're doing. How are you doing it?" I was answering phones. I was trying to take calls, get familiar with customers. I wanted them to also see that I was not there to just change it everything up, but also I wanted to see because maybe that's some of the things they were doing I wanted to keep, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go in with this mentality of this is how I want my business and the hell with everything else. No, you
Yeah.
know, it needed to be more like, okay, let's see. So that helped me, I think, a lot to ease into the relationship with those employees because they did see me involved. They saw me being hands on. And I think they also saw that I was open minded to what they were doing. I didn't agree. Then, after I took all that information, I kind of, took it to myself and be like, okay, out of these things, what is working and what isn't, right? Took a minute. It took a minute to figure that out because, again, I was also learning along the way. But once I figured out, you know what, this doesn't seem to be effective or efficient, or this seems to be a hurdle, like doesn't seem to be smooth. This seems really old school, whatever I thought
Yeah.
about it. I kind of sat down and just did a list of, okay, what solutions can I have? I like paper, I like lists. I love like writing things down and like option one.
Yeah. Yeah.
option two, I love doing that. So it's actually fun. I use colors and everything. But like you have to whatever way you do it, at the end of the day, it's coming up with what options are available and which ones are how is this transition going to look like. So one of them was certainly the management system that we have at a time was very prehistoric, not very efficient. A lot of things were being done in person.
Was it AMS 360? I'm just curious.
No, not even. It was a huge evolution. Like it was just prehistoric, dinosauric. So we and a lot of things weren't being noted. A lot of things we weren't being recorded. That was for me, I thought, an issue because obviously auditing,
Yeah.
you want to be compliance and you want to have everything logged. And for me being able to manage what's going on, I need to know what's going on. And
Yeah.
anyway, so one of the things I did was just basically start by the management system. I did that. I said, that's going to hurt no matter what. It's going to be awful to transition into another
Yes.
one. I might as well do it now. It's going to hurt no matter what. So, boom, we took that on. That was just exactly what we expected, the exact nightmare we expected, because not every file transferred. We had to manually input a bunch of stuff. We had no access to information. I mean, it was disaster.
Yeah.
Another challenge was appointments with carriers. When you buy a book, you're not guaranteed the appointment. I had a lot of relationships with through my marketing director position with a lot of carriers, and that was thankfully improved my ability of getting those appointments. So once I had those, getting the documentation to them, it was just messy.
Yeah.
It was just there's no you sent everything to 47 different carriers, and then the week after, a month later, they're like, oh, we haven't received this from you. I'm like, we sent it 3 times for
Yeah.
the last 3 months, you still haven't received it. So that's the kind of stuff. It's just tedious.
Yeah. Stressful.
um yeah, stressful because you're like, okay, I checked off my list, and then it just comes back and
That's
it's
right.
like, you know so, yeah, I mean, as far as the employees go, I mean, the biggest reluctance I think I had was, one is they were so used to the management system and so used to the way that they were recording things and so used to having everything on paper, like even signatures, you have to come in. And I was like, no, we're doing e-sign tomorrow. Like, I can't do this. E-sign tomorrow. Yeah, and that has been the best change ever. But anyway, that didn't give me much reluctance other than, again, they're just not used to it. They
Yeah.
were like, oh, this is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
No, it'll save you time.
Yes. Did you have any team members before you took on this acquisition with the two new team members?
Did I have any
Did you
team
have any
members?
staff before you made that acquisition?
No, I
Okay.
didn't even own an agency because I was still working at that corporate
Oh,
job.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay.
so then yeah, no, I have no employees. I've never managed employees, so that was another challenge on its
Okay.
own because HR is a whole other animal.
Correct.
Time off requests. I mean,
Yeah.
all that comes with that. I could go on for hours.
So what did you learn and improve on in the second acquisition that you didn't do so well on from the first acquisition?
The second acquisition, I was much quicker. That one also came with an employee, but I actually immediately chose against it
Mm,
just because I had already learned what I wanted and didn't want in an employee, I think, by then. And so I decided not to take that one on. It just didn't align with the way that we worked at the office. So I learned that right away. Something that I was always afraid of doing because I had, again, you get along with people, you like people, and it's hard to say you're fired or no, you're not doing your job. And to be that business owner position and be like friendly, it's just a hard line,
yeah.
at least for me. So, um, yeah, we didn't take on that employee that I learned. And also in the due diligence period, I asked a lot more questions. I required a lot more stuff. There was a big significant difference that I also learned from the second acquisition. And that was we acquired a book from somebody that was retiring and they were very old school. So they had all paper files.
Right.
So that was a tough one. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It just, I don't know if I would acquire an agency that has paper files again, unless I am ready with somebody to scan those things like the
Yeah.
next day because it was a big mess to find things. And I mean, I literally had to go to his office, pick up like 10 file cabinets and put them in my office. It was just, hard
Yeah.
when it comes to that. But yeah, no, the due diligence period was definitely the biggest thing I learned is just asking questions. You wanted to know, like, okay, why did you guys move all this business from this great carrier that pays you twice as much to this carrier that pays you half as much, and it was all done in 1 year period of time? Like, why did that happen? Well, because I received this from it. So, all these little questions, you don't
Yeah.
think they matter, but they do, because they moved into a company that was like not as financially stable. And so what ended up happening is that carrier were not a business. And so I wound up having to put all those people back. And those people did not have an opportunity to go back to that carrier that used to be on because the other company was no longer writing new business. So it puts me in a bad position
Yeah.
as a new owner, because then having to explain that, good luck.
And you're right. You would have never thought to ask that the first time around.
Right.
Never.
No, never. I was like, oh, so what?
Yeah.
But it matters. It
Yeah.
matters because when you're in it, you're like, you have to realize you also you don't just take on the good things, you also take on the bad things. And one of the biggest things I noticed too is like customers were really, especially with the two agencies that we bought, they really knew the owner.
Mm,
And so they had almost like a resistance. So I didn't immediately say, pick up the phone and say, "Hi, everybody, I'm your new agent. Welcome."
yeah.
It was more me picking up the phone, taking on the service calls, and actually helping them. And
Yes.
once I helped them with
Smart.
something, then they remembered my name. And then they were more willing to that. And a lot of customers had no idea I was the owner until like last year. you know?
I think that's smart. I did not do that when I took over my agency. I did, which I think your approach is much better, but again, you don't know. I
Yeah.
sent out the letter saying, "Hey, I'm Brad. I'm going to be your new agent now." And I think what that did for a good percentage of people of, "Hey, it's time for me to shop."
Yeah. It spooks people, and unfortunately, you don't that's not the intention
No.
ever. You'd
No.
hope they'd be like, "Yay." But well, especially if they didn't like their previous owner for whatever reason, you'd be like, "Yay." But But no, you're right. It does spark them to go look for alternatives because now they don't have a relationship with you. And, as you know, this business is all relationships. So I figured, build a relationship first and
Yeah.
then
Smart.
it'd probably work. And it has worked. I mean, we didn't really have a lot of loss of business. To be honest, we still have like a lot of the same customers. We really had a small percentage of lost clients.
Yeah. Tell me about the makeup of your insurance team now. How many staff do you have? And does everybody work remotely? How does that work?
All right. So yeah, we have our brick and mortar is in Boca, so that's where we have our office. And
Okay.
one of the girls that started with me when I bought the first agency, she was office manager for the previous owner back then, and she stuck around. She's been awesome. She
Wow.
has been working with me since, and kind of knows how we've been doing things. She's been all through all the changes.
Yeah.
um, Sometimes with reluctancy, sometimes more smoothly, but overall, I think it's been great. She's a great employee and very very trustworthy, which is in alignment with what I want. So she works in the office in person. So if somebody needs to walk in and whatnot, we also have she's a licensed agent, and so also another licensed agent we have. She kind of goes back and forth with remote, and she has like a hybrid model.
Yeah.
So she works from home and sometimes goes to the office. And I we she was somebody I hired probably like a year and a half ago, and she has been a great asset. She started from scratch in the industry, very young, and got her license. And so I'm very excited to see her kind of grow in the business.
Yeah.
She has a hybrid model, and then we also work with a virtual assistant, a virtual
Okay.
professional. So we have relied on her for a lot of like the unlicensed tasks, so that, and I also work remote.
Yeah.
So we kind of have like a mix of
Yeah.
everything. But it works. People don't really walk into our office. We kind of COVID kind of helped with that.
Yes, it
People
did.
got used to that because we used to have a lot of people. Again, I told you the first one was really old school, so people would have to go in person, like hand you cash and
Yes.
things like that. And so we kind of veered away from that little by little, and COVID just kind of helped us with that.
It sure did. I'd been leaning that way for a while and I know there was a lot of agencies out there that didn't take, payments in the office and didn't handle cash. And that COVID just made me decide to cut the cord that,
Yeah,
whenever, if we ever come out of this, I'm not doing that anymore. We're going fully digital, even to go to the length of even that the customers that would call us to make a monthly payment, we're not going to handle that. That's a waste of time for us to handle that. Um, you know, People had to adapt during COVID. There's no reason why this person can't call the insurance company or go online, to make a
yeah,
payment. And to me, it's just a better practice anyway for us to handle as little amount of money as possible.
yeah. That's
So
payment information too.
yeah, so that was a huge help. How are you staying connected with your team with some working remote?
So we do meetings every now and then, and but really honestly we use Slack. So
Yeah, okay.
through Slack we're constantly on each other. Like I know what everybody's doing. Obviously I have a management system, I have a way to track it and stuff, but like in general, we're always active. So, hey, what's going on this one? What are you doing? We tag each other. We have different channels in Slack that
Yeah,
have categories. So that, and we use VoIP phone system.
yeah,
So, again, if we need to talk and transfer call, I mean, it's just it's been pretty simple. I think Slack has been like the biggest help in keeping connected and staying like always on top of what everybody's doing, like we still feel like very much like a team. And we do get together in person as well, every few months. Like we just do like a
yeah.
meeting or something. We're actually doing that in April again,
Okay.
which I'm excited to, some team building activities and things.
Nice.
But yeah, but it's we're going to conference together, and so I think that all kind of helps the culture of the team.
It sure does.
And I think also to when we do our, like, any updates that I've done, I always have them kind of acknowledge something, and I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of our procedures and things, because since we're all kind of all over, I want to make sure that there's a consistency when it comes to what we do and how we do things. So there's always like some form of document
Yeah.
that enforces that, so that everybody's on aligned and on the same page still, even though we're far.
Yeah, with that, and I know I'm sure you've heard, and there's a lot of agencies that are planning on putting, and there's a lot of agencies that have an intranet. That's on my list to really dig into for the second quarter of this year is to start an intranet. And in fact, I just had a talk with my office manager just last hour that she was going to spearhead that effort. And with my help, but for that purpose of so we have a centralized location for these updates, or a change in coverage that comes out for our workflows that we are gonna have for our new employees, or our virtual professional. So I'm excited to get that going, and I think it makes sense for really any agency, but specifically those that have some form of remote team.
Yeah, we implemented, through, I had hired a consultant to work with me, Cassidy Arbelli. She's amazing. Like, she was so helpful in getting me into those processes and procedures that I needed to establish to be able to really like get organized, and into growth mode.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things that we implemented was how we have QQ, which is our, customer system, but we also have a management system we created one through like monday.com,
Okay.
and we house everything in there. And it integrates with Trello, it integrates with Slack, I mean, it's like amazing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's kind of our intranet, I guess. Like every time somebody wants to start a new, we even have a document called PTO. I mean, I'm sorry, PITAs, the pain in the ass. We just,
You can say it.
yeah, that's like the list of customers that we're just like, oh my God, like, can we handle this anymore? And we eventually figure out, like, we have everything on that thing. So it
Mhm.
is kind of like our
Yeah.
internet, and we created it. And the good thing is you can customize it to your liking. You can add things, remove. I mean, it's amazing. So I don't know. I mean, since you're looking into it, you might as well
Yeah.
check that. But it is a way to stay where everybody houses this everything, lists,
Interesting.
boards,
Yeah, I will
rules.
check that out. I actually heard it wasn't Cassidy, it was someone on her staff that might even have been the person in
Brittany.
charge for that Monday, or that Monday, because I heard her talking about, I think it was on a podcast with Teresa Kitchens, I think.
Yeah, it might have
And
been Brittany.
yeah, it sounded really, really cool.
Oh, it can be amazing. I mean, it takes a minute to set up, but you know what? It's 100% worth it. And you really, I mean, we've automated everything. Like, there's integrations with text, phone calls, emails. I mean, it's pretty cool. There's a
Hmm.
lot I haven't uncovered yet, but
Yeah.
so far it's been pretty amazing. We've been using it for over a year now, and it's really saved us time.
And you said you had Cassidy help set that up for you, or set that up,
No, I
or
mean, I did consulting with her
okay.
for a while, and then I did her program, Agency by Design, and then, which was super helpful. And then I ended up, starting that separately through her suggestion, and then I ended up kind of making it my own, I guess, like just
Okay.
designing how I wanted it. She did help me with like the original like idea of how she did it. I used her how she did it, and I kind of did a variation of that, and it's been super helpful.
Okay.
Reporting is great too.
The reporting is?
Yeah, I mean, you create your own reports basically. So
Hmm.
I mean, the way I've never really had a grip on, and this is kind of embarrassing, but I never really had a grip for a couple of years of like how many policies we're actually canceling.
Yeah.
And how many, I don't know, just retention, new business, how like sources of leads. I am doing like cross sell campaigns through there.
Yeah.
It's like everything. It's great.
Hmm. I'm gonna
Anyway,
check that out.
yeah.
How are you utilizing your virtual assistant? What kind of tasks do you
So
have him or her doing?
yeah, she has been also very helpful. So a lot of the things that we were kind of stuck doing were like checking carrier mail, doing mortgage clause changes
Yeah.
for policies. She takes our phone calls, so she's kind of like slash reception.
Yep.
Um, she mitigates some of those phone calls as long as they don't have any license work related things. She'll be able to like get to know the customer and create a relationship
Wow.
and like transfer, which has been great. She also helps me do like we have downloads set up with some carriers, so she manages that. um, she has like a role. What else is she doing? I think she's handling like any like trailing documents, like a cancellation form, making sure
Mm.
that those are on the file, just kind of making sure that the things that are on the list, that there's reminders for payments and things like that, because we do have courtesy reminders for our payments for our customers that we unfortunately babysit them a little bit. Not not very not very good. I wouldn't recommend that,
Yeah, I know.
but it is just kind of like the type of book I took on.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, she's helped us a lot with all those tasks, and I think just the fact that she is able to tackle some of those things and get them off our plate. Some things on the back end that we just don't want to sit and do. It's actually very, very helpful. It's been very, very
It's
helpful.
very high. I was so reluctant to have a VA. I thought that was something I don't need. And I just had no interest. Finally, a few years later, I decided, let me check this out. I think, if we can just eliminate some of these tedious tasks from our staff, like the mortgage verifications,
Oh,
um,
here,
maybe
late
send.
payment.
We don't have her doing any billing stuff yet.
Right.
But we do have her answering phones. We have her doing policy changes. And what I knew was one of the biggest reasons was I knew that with the climate of the auto and home insurance space, I knew we were going to be doing a lot of requoting, and
Mm-hmm.
that is flat out time consuming, and so much of that is just data entry. So I figured that was some of those pain points that we could eliminate, which was mortgage verifications, requoting. And there was a third one that we started, which was just, I asked my staff, what things do you like doing the least that we could have an unlicensed person doing? And those were the things. So that's what we started with. Since then, it's evolved.
Well,
In
it also helps, like, when somebody calls in and like I want to be the one that does the sale. Obviously, that's like what we're supposed to do as licensed agents, but I don't need to be like sitting on the phone for 45 minutes gathering information. I personally I have her, like, if there's a claim intake or something, like a quick just fill out this form kind of thing, like she can have the customer that calls in and say, okay, what kind of quote are you looking for? I'm looking for an auto quote. Okay, can I gather some information, and then I'll
Mhm.
transfer you to a licensed agent. And so that it's a smooth, transfer or whatever. But a lot of times that saves us time, because once we have the paperwork all there, we can just go straight to talking to the customer
Yeah,
about other things, more valuable things. And so yeah, that's also saved us some time.
I think that's really pretty unique, or maybe from what I've heard. I mean, that's a lot of customer facing work that you're having her doing. That's super valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, that she has the confidence. Um, and maybe she's been with you for a while, been, in the business, has gotten comfortable enough to speak to it. I mean, even if it's billing, I have heard of other agencies using their VA for billing, but think about that. If we can get billing off the or some of it off the plate of our other licensed staff, that is massive.
Yeah, no, I'm like, oh, you want to make a payment? Here's my no.
Yeah.
Talk to her. Like, I'm not gonna take your payment. Like,
That's
or
huge.
yeah, and then she is very confident. When we hired her, we did an interview, and we thought she was very, very, very good for the position. And I think I think in general, we also try to push, like, even though they are a virtual professional somewhere else, like we try to make sure they're part of the team, and
Yeah.
that she's really good at like saying, hey guys, my day's a little slower, do you guys have anything I can help with, like.
Wow.
So it's awesome because we really do help each other out that way. When that happens, obviously we all also teach each other things. Like obviously she's new to the industry or newer to the industry. So my girls are always like trying to teach her new things, like, hey, next time you do this, don't forget to record this, and this is why. Not just like, hey, do this. No, this is
Correct.
why
Teach 'em.
you do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back. You've had your agency for, 5 years or going on 5 years.
Yeah.
What and you've gone through two acquisitions in 5 years, so that's a lot, in that early period of time. What have you found to be the biggest challenges of being an agency owner?
I think the biggest challenge has been the um, again, trying to implement processes while running the business, because right now I'm still very much in the position, and I'm working on transitioning out of that, but I want to manage and oversee my business. I don't want to be an employee of my business, and I
Yes.
am still very much an employee of my business. I think a lot of the steps I took this past year will get me out of that eventually, but it does take time. Think the biggest challenge has been that, because you are still doing a lot of the work, of the
Yeah.
day-to-day work, and people ask for you all the time,
Yes.
like, I want to talk to Daniela, I want to talk to Daniela, and I'm like, oh, but I don't want to. I need to do that, like I need to promote ourselves through social media, because right now, as of right now, we haven't even touched on promoting ourselves on
Mhm.
anything. We haven't marketed almost at all until this year. And this year, when I started like actually getting on social media, I started getting on like, podcasts, Q&As. I started doing this, like finally getting a little bit of a connection with the niche that we're trying to get more of. Finally, that's happening. But the challenge has been with the market in Florida,
Mm.
it's a lot of requoting, like constant. It's not
Yes.
just Florida, but like it's just nonstop requoting. And so that has probably been one of our biggest challenges in growing. We just haven't found the formula, I guess, to be able to grow while retain, like that kind of like middle ground of how do I continue to generate a lot of growth? Because I can go and ask for leads from everybody. I'm sure I'll get them, and I'll be flooded with leads, and then I'll never get to them. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. And then I say, okay, well, I'll get another employee. Yeah, I get another employee, but then but then you have to train them. Like, it's like it's just trying to like slowly get into that mode. So that's been the hardest, is just trying to figure out, like, you don't always think you don't even know, you don't always know what the best decision is every single time. So you
No.
just, it's a lot of trial and error, and it that causes some setbacks sometimes. So that's been the hardest, to trust my judgment. you
Yeah,
know.
well, that is, all that. I mean, you listed a lot of challenges there that I think we all face, which comes with growth, and then you have,
Growing pains.
with Florida, I don't know anything about the Florida market, but it's probably the most difficult market in the country. It has to be.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a massive challenge. And then you add on, right, you're driven, and I've heard you say before, you're ambitious, and you are a driven person. And I know that growth is important to you. That's hard, because that's not growth. That's just spinning your tires,
Feel like I'm on a
but
treadmill. Just like on the same, I'm like, oh my god, I need to get off the treadmill and like hike.
yeah,
I It's just so hard. But yeah, no, I think we all face those challenges, and
yeah,
I think there is a level of acceptance that you just have to. You don't want to be complacent and be like, oh yeah, this is just how it is, and just go to the beach. But you do want to be a little bit of have some acceptance to, and grace for yourself, to
yes,
know, like, listen, it is hard right now, and no, not everybody has the same challenges, but a lot of us do, and there is something to be said about the market in general, and carrier appointments being more strict, and I don't know, there's just there's just so many factors to it. So sometimes do take a step back and say, you know what? It's okay that I'm not growing at the pace that I was
Yeah.
expecting at 5 years. It's okay. But then I have to, okay, but I still have to continue to take action. So what is the action that I'm going to take to at least continue to move forward, even if it's a
Yes.
small bit?
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I go back to, I've said it so many times, and I try to give Teresa Kitchens the credit for teaching me this, or at least I heard it from her. She told me she stole it from someone else, but she doesn't know. So I give her the credit. Progress, not perfection, right? We
100%.
want things so much. We want growth so much. We want to have this, perfectly run agency. We just have to keep making progress.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it happens. I mean, perfection, no, but definitely little by little, you reach those goals. I think it's just also focusing on one at a time. I think we try to like say, "Ooh, I want this. Ooh, I want this, and this, and this, and this." One thing at a time.
correct.
And I think it helps to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's good advice. Give me, how about some mistakes that you made along the way that you wish you would have done a little bit differently?
Oh.
Wh-
Well, I think one of them was definitely not hiring a consultant sooner.
mm,
I think I would have benefited from that. I always believed in the power of hiring an expert for things, but for
Yeah.
some reason, it didn't dawn on me like, oh, there's experts out there that can help you implement these things. I think I always thought it was like, oh my God, it's such a large expense sometimes, and you see it as an expense, but it's really not. It's really an investment,
Investment. Yeah.
and the amount of growth that I've been able to generate, and just having another pair of eyes see it from like
Mm.
a bird's eye view versus me, that like Cassie would always tell me, like, you're in it. So when you're like, the Tasmanian devil, when you're like in that spiral, like you can't see what's happening.
No.
Somebody else comes in with different eyes, different perspective, different expertise, and can say and pinpoint something that you may already know in like three
Yeah.
seconds and be like, you know what? This is what's happening here. Boom, boom, boom. Now, what's the plan to tackle it? This. Okay, let's do it. And you're like, oh, I already knew that, but for some
Yeah.
reason I didn't see it.
Correct. And when someone points it out, it's just like a light bulb going off.
It's amazing. So, yeah, no, that would be probably the biggest mistake. It's not, I mean, I ended up doing it, but I think I would benefit from doing it way sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I recommend that to anybody and everybody starting a business of any kind.
Yeah. Good
Find a
advice.
mentor, talk to people, network.
Last question before I let you go for the day. What areas would you like to improve on in 2023?
I would like to improve on, well, me is very important to be able to strengthen the relationship. I know this sounds as secondary, but for me, it's really important to strengthen the culture in my office and get aligned that everybody in the office hops on my bus and goes and is very excited. I want the same excitement that I have for this business because I want the people working in my office to benefit from it as much as I do. So like the office grows, I make more money, but I want them to make more money. I want
Yeah.
them to really reap the benefits of that, not just me. So that's really important to me because I feel like a solid team makes a whole bunch of difference in how your business runs. And so that's one of my goals is that strengthening the inside culture, I guess, of my team and really just propelling them and getting them to switch their mindset to a more growth mindset for themselves personally, but also for the business, because I feel like that could go a long way if you are able to get them to hop on board that mentality.
If you can change that mindset, you're going to have to be a consultant because is about 35,000 other independent insurance agencies that'll want to know how you got everybody rowing the boat in the same direction.
Well, I'm definitely gonna die trying, I'll tell you. And hopefully it works out. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want to be in a good environment. We all want to make more money. We all want to have a good, something that drives us, whether it's personal or professionally, and have something that fulfills us. So I feel like if I can fulfill those buckets for myself, for them, and therefore for the business, then I could succeed at it. But I'll let you know in 2024.
Yeah. Do you have ideas on how, you're going to do some of those things and get them to, share some of your vision?
Yes, I mean, I have started with some of that. Like I've been talking to them a lot more, involving them a lot more in like what I'm doing. I like to. I'm like a podcast nerd. Like I love to listen to specific mindset podcasts. I believe in like the power of mind a lot. So I I share those a lot with them. I know it sounds so silly, but a lot of
No.
times it takes one. Sometimes it only takes one podcast or one phrase or one book, to change and
Yes.
click that button. So I always feel like, worst that could happen is that they ignore it and never listen to it. But if they do and they get something out of it, I won, right? So sharing that, and also like for example, we're like I told you, we're going to the conference. I was like, you guys need to come to this one with me. I want you guys to be part of it. I want you to listen to the speakers. I want you to meet other people in the industry that are ahead of us so you can see what they do, learn from them, like, and hopefully that motivates them to also join that, yay, grow. And I don't know. I feel like they're good people. They're great employees. They're a great team. But I do feel like they have potential to do more.
Yeah.
And I want them to see it, not just me, and be like, just I want them to see it for themselves. You can tell somebody all day, but until they see it for themselves, it makes no difference.
Yeah. I
Hopefully,
agree
I
with
can
you.
uncover that. Yeah.
Well, Daniela, I'm gonna let you. I think our time is up, and I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank
So
you for having.
so much you shared so much good information. So this is really going to be a great episode.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much, Brad. Great questions too.
Yeah. Everybody else, thank you so much for listening in to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast, and we'll see you next week. Bye,
All
Danielle.
right. Bye.